Hello, as Mr. Boopy is saying in the chat. It's a pleasure to be back here on the RS cast. It's your boy Hopx back on the mic, and I'm joined by the man with the most luscious of locks, Mr. Munkmunk. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing wonderfully. It's another RS cast. Let's get into it.
Exactly, and also the big man himself, Archaon, is back again, and this time his mic is all properly set up, so I don't want to see any bitching in chat. You can keep your tears to yourself, okay? But Archaon, how are you doing, my friend?
As long as the stream's perfect, I'm absolutely dandy. I've been messing with this all morning. My microphone is fine. Noise suppression on, noise gate on. Let's go.
Happy days indeed. So, guys, we have a nice, exciting week ahead. A bit of a change in the RS cast as we have entered input a new feature, which is going to be fails of the week, where we see a whole collective highlights of fails that have happened across the week, and we get to vote on who we can roast the hardest. And don't worry, I'm here. If you know me, I'll be roasting very, very hard. And to begin the roast, I'm just going to post that in chat real quick. If you want to have something to laugh at, do click that link. But anyway, we're going to dive straight into the weekly review, starting with Prospect and having a look at the results of what happened over this. We have a whole bunch of 4-0s and one unfortunate FF. However, an Ignis, 2 FFs, and a whole bunch of 4-0s as well. So, you know, it's not good to see these FFs. I wonder what happened there. Archaon, I'm going to hand the mic over to you first. What are we seeing with these FFs and these 4-0s?
Cross conference has been a pretty weird week. There's been, I think, probably a couple more forfeits this week than there has been in the whole 4 weeks previously. I get there's like exams and stuff are going on at the moment and people on holiday and stuff, but yeah, there's just a couple more forfeits than we'd appreciate. But there's some massive results, so still, I mean, look at Galaxy Polaris going 8-0. It's no mean feat doing that to Kindling and O2 Toes. And also Terra taking down Tartaros and where are they? I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, they beat Caro 4-0 as well. So Terra going 8-0 in that division as well, keeping the pace on Galaxy Polaris, and I think they're both actually tied now for first and second.
That's going to be nice and impressive for them. It's definitely, these results are a big deal, but what I'm, kind of surprised about is how many 4-0s there was. I mean, these games were meant to be close. I mean, Mark, what do you think's happened here? Do you think that it's just a factor of Prospect? There's just some teams which are obviously more dominant than others, or do you think something else is happening with these results?
It's a hard one to call because we want every game to be close here, and this amount of 4-0s is very surprising. Maybe it is just not knowing the opponent's cross conference. This will be the only time these teams meet until the playoffs all league season. So maybe some underestimating, maybe some not knowing what the opponent is going to do. But yeah, I mean, when you have two teams from Glacies going 8-0, it's not looking great for the Ignis side over there.
Yeah, definitely not. And I must admit, I want to comment on a game. I think it was Overturn versus Tartaros. I think that was the one that was on Wednesday. Am I correct, Archaon? That's the one I casted. I can't remember, but I know it was Overturn. But Overturn's defense is just something else. I was blown away. I don't know if anyone saw those matches that I casted on Wednesdays, but Overturn was just unbelievable.
Was Prospect not Exelon versus Yggdrasil? It was the top two teams in Prospect.
Was it? No, I thought the games was But anyway, regardless, there were some fantastic games across the week. And before we do move on, Arkin, I kind of want to ask you any results that really stand out to you and that surprise you.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stream schedule. On Wednesday, it was Exelon versus Yggdrasil. It was first versus first, and it was a great game.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell why both teams were at the top, and both defenses were on top. Exelon were pretty disappointed they didn't get the sweep because of connection issues in the first game. But I think that series could have gone either way, and a huge credit to both teams for being as high as they are at the moment. Exelon have just found a way to grind out games and win by 1 goal. However, Yggdrasil, after that 3-1 loss, went and 4-0'd Minecraft Faction, so they did get a positive week out of it. there's a couple of draws in mid-table that I think people will be disappointed about. Prelude were on the up in recent weeks, and they drew to Fearless Bravo 2-2 and Gumbo 2-2. I feel like those results, I think, has allowed Exelon to go 8 clear in that division. So I think Prelude will be the most disappointed from these cross-conference results. But Monk did a little sheet for us today.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
Monk makes these sheets out of his own time. He loves to be the statistics man. And Prospect Glacis actually beat Ignis 43-21 this week.
Wait. That's a huge margin, and I think this will be a debate that we kind of carry on as we go through, or each one of the leagues to talk about the reviews. However, there was that idea before with the new conferences that Ignis is going to be the stronger conference. Do you think that is going to transpire?
When you look at the conference, Ignis definitely have the best GMs from previous seasons and the best squads, I think. However, Glacis are the like you say in previous RS casts, they are the new people. They've got new franchises in, they've got new players in there, and I think they're competing as the underdogs and definitely showing their nous to take down results in against the Ignis conference.
Well, there we go. I mean, it's definitely an interesting debate, and I think the only way we're going to be able to settle this is when we hit the playoffs time, as we do slowly approach the playoff time, indeed. But let's have a look at the standings after these cross-conference results. I'm very excited to see how things have kind of mixed up, because obviously these teams haven't been playing each other, but there's going to be results that have impacted, and we see Yggdrasil and Terra sat nicely at the top, but Galaxy Polaris moving up to third, just overtaking Fearless Bravo with 4 wins, as Fearless Bravo have tied now with Overturn, 20 wins apiece. Sevens go down into 6th with 19 wins, followed by Gumbo with 17 wins and Gamma with 15. Mug, right here, I feel like it's definitely going to be the battle from 3rd to 8th right now. Terra and Yggdrasil just look too far ahead.
Yeah, Yggdrasil were top last week, and despite their loss to Exelon, they're now tied top with Terra, who's just gone 8-0. So they are looking very pretty at the top. But yeah, the 3rd to 8th is going to be the real battle. Maybe Galaxy Polaris a bit ahead of the rest after their 8-0 week, but still plenty of playoff spots up for grabs if these teams can find a bit of form going into the final 3 weeks of RSC.
Yeah, and Monk, what do you expect? Do you expect any changes to happen here? I mean, if you had, not saying you have to call what teams, but what do you kind of see happening within these 3rd to 8th positions? Is Gamma going to be stuck in 8th, or do you expect a run from them?
It's going to be very tough for Gamma. They have got a couple. They've got one. I think they've got Quick Study from last season, and I think he was bottom in Prospect then, and he's bottom again. So it's going to be tough for him. He's only five off 4th place, that glorious playoff position. So very, very much still in their reaches, but I think it's going to be a tough one for them to overcome teams like Fearless Bravo, Overturned Severance with their very strong rosters.
Definitely difficult indeed. But those are your standings for Glacies in the Prospect League. However, now we move on to Ignis and see how things over the cross-conference week has affected those standings. And as we look here, Exxon sat very comfortably at the top. We will mention Symbiotes, an incredible week as we approach the end of the weekly reviews, but Exxon nicely comfortable at the top with 31-9. Still only in the single digits for their losses. Preludes, 7 wins ahead with 24, 7 wins behind Exxon, even with 24 wins. Followed by Kindling, only 1 win behind Prelude with 23. And Tartaros still in 4th with 19 wins, but closely followed by Digestives. And then Alturtu sat in 6th with 16 wins. Michael Fashion with 9 and Carol with 9, both at 7th and 8th respectively. And so right now it is first, second, third, Exelon, Prelude, and Kindling just kind of storming away from everybody else. Archaon, I mean, you must be happy with running the Symbiotes franchise, etc., etc. But those 3 teams, are they going to be caught at all?
Like I said earlier on, I think Prelude will be the most disappointed from this week. They drew 4-4 this week, drawing both games, and they were the ones keeping pressure on Exelon. the good thing about Exelon, like I said, they're grinding out 1-goal games. As you can see, they've only scored. I mean, I say only scored. They've scored 96 goals, but there's 2 teams who have more goals than them, and the goal difference is the second best in the division. So Prelude dominate them on that stat. Like I said, they've just got used to grinding out 1-goal games. I think the most disappointing as well, other than Prelude, is Tartaros. They found themselves losing ground in this tier. Losing to Terra 4-0 this week. But as we can see, Digestives move up and Micah Faction move up 1 as well.
So, Micah Faction going up, maybe it's the start of a bit of momentum for them, but they only have 9 wins. Quite far behind the Exelon side, but still, a couple of weeks left, and maybe they can make a bit of a dent in the standings, but only time will tell. But those are your prospect standings, Glacis and Ignis. And so let's have a look at the fixtures for the week ahead. After the cross-conference has kind of shaken up the teams a little bit, they'll be facing up against teams that they're probably a little bit more familiar with, being in their own respective conferences. It's all exciting as the games commence. I mean, Monk, what are the main games to look out for here?
Well, we'll see Yggdrasil go at it again against Overturn and Severance, and they'll be looking to carry on from their sweep over Micah Faction. So that'll be big for them to see if, that battle at the top in Glacis and Terra going up against Overturn as well. So Overturn having a big week to try and decide who gets to stay at the top as they play both those top 2 teams in the Glacis side.
Definitely going to be interesting to see how these guys match up. And Archaon, what about yourself? What are you excited to see, and what games do you think are going to make an impact on these standings?
Well, I instantly look at Ignis straight away. Usually, obviously the cross-conference results don't show that they've been doing too great in this tier. However, we look at Digestives versus
Micah or Caro?
I was just looking at one then. Micah Faction and Atutos, they will be looking to get a good result here because those are teams in the bottom 3 of this conference. However, Atutos have 16 wins. They're not out of it yet. They're only three wins off 4th place. So they really need to get a good result against Micah. But as we said on the standings earlier, Micah have risen from 8th to 7th, and they'll be looking to get some wins on the board after a whole lot of roster changes. The other games I'm looking at, though, kind of include Tartaros and Kindling, and they both play each other. It's a massive game. Kindling have just cut their highest player and managed to get Jobin from Override. And obviously, Tartaros lost one of their players in Ravi this week. So a whole lot of roster changes going on in these 3rd and 4th place teams, and Tartaros have to get a good result against the 2nd place team.
So a lot riding on Tartarus' shoulders this week. Definitely want to make a bit of a change. Want to keep on their momentum after they had a really strong past couple of weeks, but just faltering in the cross-conference games. But that is your schedule ahead. We have got Gumbo versus Galaxy Polaris happening today, so if we did find out the results, please let me know in chat. But that is your prospect weekly review as we now move over to the Challenger results from the cross-conference games, and there were some fantastic games in here, unbelievable showings from each side. And I think there was who was I talking to? I think it was Geodude, who had some incredible stats from the week, from this week, and he is in the challenger challenger rank as well. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic to see these results, and not as many FFs. Only one FF I see, which was Chorus versus Nuclear. Don't know what happened there, but still a lot of full rows happening, and this is really the kind of the cause and the separation between these 2 conferences. And it's interesting to see how these 2 sides stack up against each other. But Monk, what do you see here? Talk to me.
Well, despite, as I saw on my sheet, Challenger Ignis losing it again, they did have 2 very strong teams who got the majority of the wins. Custard Creams went 8-0 against Neptunium and Shieling, and then Scorn went 7-1. So these are the big 2 sides. They've really pulled away now in the Ignis standings. It's going to be hard for anyone to catch them, but yeah, despite Ignis overall not being too strong, Custard Creams and Scorn really leading the pack.
100%, and I think a really, really fantastic game that I got to cast was Oversurge versus Spark. A really, really cool game. It was very, very entertaining as well. It was with Shabby Shao, and that game was just absolutely so close, so incredible. But
Actually had a prospect player on the winning team as well.
yeah, they did. Who was it? Oh, can you remind me?
Maurice.
Everyone's favorite
Who
Maurice.
absolutely fragged out, I must say. So, props to Maurice if you're in the chat. GG's to you. But that was a fantastic game. And what about you, Archaon? What game stood out for you this week?
I have to go to my boys, Scorn. Like I sat through 2 hours of their series. They've been struggling for results, and you obviously know Gio. He's been getting frustrated being a first man and having to defend a lot. So I did a bit of coaching with them, tried to give them some tips mid-series of where they were going wrong, and they managed to pull out a 7-1 week, which is one of the best performances they've done so far. I've just noticed that they've actually drawn 2-2 tonight, so a bit of a falter in there. Not sure what's gone on. Played against Chorus, however, there were a lot of good results, especially for Atlas Florida. They've been dominant in the past few weeks with Archaon, Dreed, Ralbone, and I apologise for forgetting the fourth there. However, they've got...
Is it Pete?
Pete, yeah.
Yeah.
But they've gone 4-0 versus Amutos and 3-1 versus Orcus. I think the game against Orcus might have featured a sub. Orcus have had roster issues recently.
Yeah.
So Orcus were one of the top 2 teams in Ignis, but faltering in the recent weeks. But Custard Creams again going 8-0. I mean, no mean feat sweeping Neptunium and Shiling as well. So.
Custard Creams are really, really dominant right now, and as Monk just said, them and who is it, Scorn, who are just so dominant at the top. It's definitely those two teams will be. I'd be surprised not to see those two teams really face off later on down the line as we get towards playoffs. They're so dominant, and as you say, going 8-0 against Neptunian Shielding is just no mean feat. But those are your results, guys. A really massive GG's to the cross conference, but as we know these results, let's see how they've impacted the standings. Taking a look at Glacies to start off with them, and these games once again are cross conference, and so the impact is slightly different to as it was if you're playing within your conference. You're not playing against a team who you may be able to knock down a few pegs if you beat them. You're playing literally solely to get a W and as many wins as possible. And so, a lot to play for here as a cross conference. But we see Atlas Florida nicely and comfortably at the top, followed by Overall, who are 24 wins. Shielding Sand second with 23, tied by Nuclear with 23 as well. Asgard with 21 wins, sat in 5th place. 6th goes to Oversurge with 20 wins. Neptunium with 14 wins, and Fearless Kilo with 12 wins, sat in 8th place. So, Monk, right here, only 3 changes happening, and I mean, is that surprising to you?
Well, you see how close this is. You see Overrule and Shielding, they've just managed to stay ahead of Nuclear, who are coming in with some great form, but yeah, I mean, we could have seen more changes between those middle 5. There's only 4 wins separating 2nd to 6th. I don't think it's that surprising to only see 3.
Well, you see, this is the stat, man. This is Monk. This is why we have you on the RS cast. You know these stats like the back of your hand. You put me in my box saying don't be stupid. It's not surprising to see 3 changes. But those are your closest standings, and like Monk said, like the man said, this is not too surprising, apart from the fact that Shielding and Overall are just staying out of grasp from Nuclear. Nuclear doing a really good job of drawing them in, reeling them in, and so really good job from them. But those are your closest standings, and let's have a look at how Ignis have now stood after the previous week. All very exciting indeed.
Before we do move on, sorry, I just want to pick up on Nuclear because they have gone 14-2 since the acquisition of Real Spartax. Spartax, like we've said previously, cut himself from Spark because he felt like he was getting overshadowed on that roster, and he's come in and brought Nuclear up from 6th or 7th up to 4th this week, and they're doing a really good job of keeping pace with 2nd right now.
I mean, that's quite impressive. I mean, we talked about Spartax when he got cut and how much of quality he brought to a team, and he's showing it. He's come onto a side which was struggling, and they have gone 12 and 2, 14 and 2. What did you say? Incredible starts, incredible stuff indeed. But now there's the Ignis standings, and once again we see Custard Creams sat with 7 wins clear of Scorn with 32 to their name. Scorn in second place with 25 wins, 5 above Orcus, who have moved up into third, overtaking Chorus, who now are stuck in fourth with 19 wins. 18 wins with Spark in 5th, followed by Nezuko Gang, then in Motors, and then in 8th place is Masai. And this is so unbelievably close. 5 wins separating 7th and 4th, and then 7th and 7th and 4th, and 6 wins 7th and 2nd, 7th and 3rd. I mean, I'm getting my numbers mixed up right now because of how close this standings are. Monk, I mean, from a statistician point of view, it is literally just 1 week. If you go an 8-0, if Emotions go 8-0, they could effectively jump up into third.
Yeah, Moto's coming in. They got a sweep and then got swept, so they managed to keep pace. Actually caught up because no one from 3rd to 6th got more than 2 wins. We all went either 1-7 or 2-6, so that left the door wide open for Motos to try and catch up, and they've brought 2 back on us. And it's very close. Could be anyone's game, as you say. An 8-0 week would be vital for anyone in this stage of the game.
It's incredible stuff indeed. Custard Creams are fairly comfortable right now, Archaon. I mean, you don't really see them changing. I mean, you being the owner of the Symbiotes franchise with Scorn, how confident are you in catching up to Custard Creams? Considering that they are 7 wins ahead of you.
Custard Creams are the one to beat. I think they've pretty much secured first place. I don't want my lads to be disheartened. I've openly told them that I think Custard Creams are dominating the tier. Scorn know that they have inconsistency issues. They've shown it tonight as well by drawing Chorus 2-2. Like if you look at Chorus's wins and losses, they're actually negative. And they've had roster issues last week. They forfeited a Game 4, and one of the players left after the match and forfeited the series after it. So there's a bit of disgruntledness in that roster as well after performing so well for Chung. But yeah, I think Scorn will cement 2nd place after Orcus's roster issues as well. The one to watch out for, I think, is Spark. I think they're going to make a comeback if they get someone in that they actually want on the roster. I'm not sure if they've filled the 4th place yet, but
Vax, they got in.
Vax, yeah. You can never rule out Sparks. Shies is such a good GM, not doing as well as he usually does this season, but you've always got to look out for this challenger team.
Definitely. Spark, I mean, we saw what they did last season. They are definitely, a bit of a wild card. Anything can happen. And so I'm excited to see how these weeks progress. But those are your Ignis standings. And so with those standings, let's have a look at what we have upcoming this week with the fixtures. And I'm excited to see how these fixtures kind of pan out. As, Monk has said, if a Motus from Ignis, or if any team really from Ignis that's kind of like 3rd down has an 8-0 week, that could be huge for them because of how close these teams in these standings are. So Archaon, I mean, a couple of these games must be fairly important, especially on the Ignis side.
Yeah, 100%. If you look at Custard Cream straight away, they'll be boosted by the fact that they've got Masai first. Masai are struggling. They've cut 2 of the roster today. They went 0-8 last week. So Custard Creams will be looking at that as another 4-0. And Scorn have just drawn Chorus 2-2. So Custard could get another 2-game advantage on them here. Another game that I'm looking forward to tomorrow, though, is Spark versus Scorn as well. But looking at Nezuko Gang's fixtures, these are teams that really need to start performing. Spark on 18 wins. I think Nezuko Gang are on 16, Imuto's on 14, 17. Something like that. You're all bunched up, and 3 of those teams play each other this week. Nezuko and Imuto, Spark and Nezuko. It's just a massive week for these mid to lower table teams.
Definitely tough stuff indeed. But anything really can happen. And Monk, what about Glacies?
Well, as Ark was saying about Nuclear going 14-2 the past 2 weeks, they're coming up against their biggest competition yet in top of the table Atlas Florida, they both had great weeks going 8-0 and 7-1. So that one going on, I think tonight is going to be a big one to decide who can keep going for the top spot. And other than that, I think Overrule as well, because I think they're in third, tied with Nuclear. They have maybe an easier game against Neptunium, but also going up against Atlas Florida tonight. So today, both Atlas Florida's games could be big for who's going to be, if anyone can catch up to Atlas Florida at the top.
Definitely. Atlas Florida sat comfortably at the top, as well as Custard Creams for the Ignis franchise. And those are your fixtures ahead this week, guys. Can anyone challenge these two top teams? Only time will tell. But if you don't know your games, guys, they will be here. So take a screenshot. We do have Nuclear and Atlas Florida, Shilling versus Fearless Kilo, and Overall versus Atlas Florida as well. So both Atlas Florida games happening today. So let's know the results. And Ignis has Scorn versus Chorus happening today as well. And so, a lot of stuff happening, and keep tuned, guys, over this week, because still these standings are extremely, extremely close. But let's jump over to the minor weekly review and have a look at the results from there. And minor, it's so fascinating. Always been so close. Be these players wanting to push the boundaries and push up into major. And here we see only 2 FFs once again. So it's nice to see a few less. It's a shame to see so many across this week. It's pretty. I'd expect probably more in 1 week than we have for the whole rest of the season so far. So. We understand the exams are going on, but hopefully we can go back to our 0 FF ways after this week. But lots of 4-0s once again, lots of 3-1s, and I think only 1-2-2 Concerted versus Bayou. So each team and every team probably getting at least one victory here. Am I wrong, Monk? What do you see here?
The first thing that I noticed was Party Rings going 7-1, and they haven't always had consistent weeks, but in their first game against Overload, they lost it, and Overload had a sub, then they won the rest of the 3, and then an hour later they went on to sweep Atlas Everglade, who've been really strong in previous weeks. So yeah, Party Rings, big ups to them. They're trying to move up the table, and that's a very strong showing that last week.
Definitely strong as well.
I have to agree with Monk there. Like, Party Rings always leave their games until Sunday for some reason, and it's a bit of a mental game, having both games on the same night, especially on the last day of the week as well. There's no way you can reschedule if things go wrong. Going 7-1, especially like Monk said, after losing that first game, to have that mental game to go 7-1 against Overload and Atlas, who aren't bad teams. They are 3rd and 4th, I think, in this conference. It's a really good result.
Really strong result from them indeed. And that was a huge momentum and confidence booster. And I love the fact that they're doing kind of this mental edge sort of thing, playing your games on a Sunday. And a lot of players don't want to play, competitive on Sunday. They want to relax, but Party Rings taking advantage of that indeed. Definitely really strong performance from them. And I think Ember also went 7-1 this week, beating out Valhalla 4-0 and Uranium 3-1. So good showing from them as well. So a lot of fantastic results here, and those are your results from week 5 in the conference, cross-conference week in minor. With these results, let's see how they've affected the standings. And looking at Glacies to start off with, as Bayou is still sat at the top with 30 wins and 10 losses. Fearless Echo with 24 wins in second. Overload move up to third, overtaking Atlas Everglade after Atlas Everglade, taken down quite a bit this week. Uranium move up to fifth with 19 wins and 21 losses, and Valhalla with 19 wins and 21 losses as well. I mean, Atlas Everglade, Uranium, and Valhalla all tied. And Overload all tied, so 4 teams tied with 19 wins and 21 losses, leaving Antimatter and Overkill with 14 wins and 26 losses each in 7th and 8th place. I mean, this is, Archaon, the closest tier Surely this is the closest franchise. I mean, the conference.
Definitely. I was looking at the league standings on Sunday and I couldn't believe how close Minor is. This is even worse than Major was last season.
This is
I
ridiculous.
think it's like this in Ignis as well. I think there's like 3rd to 8th on the same amount of wins or around about like 3-4 games difference. It's just ridiculously close, and it's the teams that we predicted in power rankings as well. Overload was supposed to be up there. Atlas Everglade was supposed to be up there. I think Fearless Echo was. The only surprising one is how Bayou have gone 30-10 with the roster that was really disjointed and put together at the start of the season. None of them knew each other, and they've just seemed to get this chemistry. And I mean, look at the goal difference, 41 compared to all the others. 4th to 8th all have negative goal difference. They're dominating this conference.
I mean, Bayou really, really yeeting off in first place. Unbelievable from them indeed. And Monk, and being a statistician here, I mean, could anyone have predicted how close this franchise is? This conference is even?
Well, I mean, it's what you're hoping for when you come into this. You don't want any teams to run away, which maybe Bayou have a bit, but yeah, it's very, very close. Everything's still up for grabs. Fearless Echo maybe trying to pull away like Bayou with making that 5 gap from 3rd to 6th. As they're all tied, yeah, but I mean, maybe you could have called it, but it would be very impressive if you'd called 4 teams to be on the same wins in week 5.
I know, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And, Archaon and Monk, I'm going to both pose you this question. Which team do you think is actually going to make the first ripples? And, who's going to start making moves in these tied teams, 3rd to 6th? What team is going to make the big change first? And, who's going to move up the standings first, Archaon?
I think Fearless Echo need to be worried. Since they've had their player banned, the results have been really mixed, and they did actually leave the game against my team. I think we had I think it was like something like 6-0, 6-1, 7-1, and then like 11-0 or something in the last game. Like their goal difference took a hit. I think they had like 40 goal difference before that game, and now it's at 6. They'll be looking over their shoulder, and if you ask me in week 1, I would have said Overload would have been one of the teams, and Atlas Everglade, that finish in the top 2. The thing with Overload though, they've 2v3'd a couple of series this season, which has like hurt them. They're 19-21 now, but I still think Overload and Atlas are the closest competition for Bayou and Fearless.
Interesting. And Mark, do you agree with those two choices, or is there another one that's going to be thrown into the mix?
I do agree. Uranum, they went 5-3, but that was only because after their loss to Ember, they got the forfeit from Yoruba, which was very fortunate because it meant they were able to keep up with these teams. Because otherwise, I mean, if Yoruba had fielded a team, I think they definitely would have got some wins against Uranum. So I'm not sure about their position. And Valhalla, the other team, tied there. They got swept by Ember, so they both lost to Ember. So I think I agree with Ark in that Overload and Atlas are the main contenders that Fearless Echo need to be worried about.
Interesting. And, just finally touching on one more thing, Mark, I'm going to come back to you. Antimatter, Overkill, I mean, is there a chance for them to kind of, jump up and take any teams by surprise?
You'd like to think so. Only 5 wins off. There were many opportunities for any of these teams to slip up, but Overkill, after 1 win, they went and got swept by Arch's minor side, Toxin 4-0. So, that they maybe could have got a bit closer if they got anything from that, but they will stay 8th. And Antimatter, they've had some roster changes. They went 2-6, losing to Consider and Arena Tribe. So, not great form going into the next week, but yeah, still potential for them to try and launch a comeback.
Yeah, they cut Super straight after the stream yesterday, so they're going to be looking for a main roster player very, very soon.
I mean, and, a lot could happen within the standings, guys, and a lot to play for in the weeks ahead. And those are your Glacier standings, so let's move on to the Ignis conference and see if it's anywhere near as close as the Glaciers is, as we have got 4 or 5 teams, all tied in the Glaciers conference. However, we see Toxin nicely at the top, 29 wins and 11 losses. 2 wins behind is Concerto, sat in second place. Ember and Party Wings tied with 26 wins apiece in third and fourth. Weeaboos are in fifth with 19 wins, followed by Arena Tribe with 15. Yorubu and Erebos in seventh and eighth with 11 wins to Yorubu and 9 wins to Erebos. And so, this is far more stressed out. However, the closeness comes on with the top end of these standings, first and through till fourth. Really, really close. 3 wins separating these sides. I mean, usually we see the closeness happening in the middle of the pack, Archaon. I mean, right here, it's right at the top. Hey, at first place, Toxin, they mustn't feel comfortable.
No, I don't think they do, especially after that shock loss to Yoruba on Monday. It was a rescheduled game due to personal issues on Yoruba's side, and that's why they forfeited 2 games this week. After losing that game to Yoruba, though, 3-1, they went 8-0 this week against, who was it now? Overkill and...
Fearless Echo.
So... they'll be glad that they find themselves back in first place, but the consistency on these top four teams has been ridiculous. I mean, Ember lost to Toxin in week 1 or 2. I've managed to bring it back to within 3 games. Party Rings got beaten twice in week 1, I think, and beaten by Toxin, and they've brought it back up to 4th. There's 7 games difference between Weeaboos and Party Rings, and if I was in Weeaboo's position, I'd be looking at that and thinking, this is a hard task to get into playoffs.
It's really, really difficult indeed. But, it's a tough task. But, Monk, how doable do you think it is? I mean, you closely analyze these teams. I mean, how doable is it for Weeaboos or Arena Tribe or even Yoruba to get into the playoff position?
Well, I think Yoruba is a bit of a different story considering their forfeit issues. So, first step is getting the team together, making sure they show up for the games, whatever's going on. But other than that, you see Party Rings and Ember go 7-1 and Weeaboos go 2-6. They were only 5 behind. They were only a couple behind last week, and now they're a full 7 behind 4th place. So they've got to get their act together, and they've got to do it soon. Only 3 weeks left. 7 games is no mean feat, and even 11 for Arena Tribe, who've gone 4-4.
Arena could be boosted by the fact that they actually got the first win of the season on stream yesterday. They beat Antimatter 3-1, and they're boosted by the fact that Infinity is coming back from inactive reserve as well. Unfortunately, that saw Steve get cut. Obviously, with inactive reserve, you have to cut down from 5 players to 4 because one's coming back.
As in, like,
had to take the fall, but Oldham Steve got cut for Infinity. Yeah.
Is that the Roehampton Infinity? Was
Yes.
this a deal?
Yeah,
yes. Oh my
so
lord.
he's moved back. He's moved back to
That's gonna be
America,
bog.
and he's now at home. But he's going to have ping issues, so they could be boosted by the fact that he comes back. But they could also have the disadvantage of having that ping issue while in America. So
Well, I do know from obviously, being this side, I do know he has been grinding. This man is on a different level right now. So I think it's definitely, as you say, it's it's a 50-50, but big ups Infinity indeed. It's nice to have, it would be nice to have him back in the games. But those are your standings for the minor league. And with that, let's have a look at the fixtures with the week ahead. And as we're saying, I'm going to reiterate this point once again, guys. No more FFs as the weeks go on. I want people to turn up to their games. We've had far too many over the cross conference. Let's go back to our usual way. So if you don't know your games, please take a picture of this because then you'll know when you're playing. Just a hint. I don't know. Anyway, we have Valhalla versus Overkill and Party Wings versus Concerto happening today. So if you know your results, please let us know in the chat. But Monk, right now, after last week, what is expected in these games ahead of us?
It's going to be massive over in the Glacier side to see if any of these tied teams get broken. We have 2 of them playing in Overload versus Valhalla on Wednesday, so that'll be a big game if Overload can continue, as we say, as they're maybe one of the favourite teams from those 4, but You also got Bayou going up against Uranim, who are one of those tied teams, and after that forfeit win, they'll be looking to try and get an on-the-field win against one of the big teams.
Juventus definitely have it fairly tough this week, going against both Bayou and Fearless Echo. I mean, tough in one sense and maybe a bit lucky in the other. I know Bayou, very difficult opponent, being very strong. Fearless Echo, though, on the other hand, really, really strong, but having a few issues. So, Archaon, do you think Uranium will be, fairly chuffed to see that they'll be facing Fearless Echo, or do you think they're going to be kind of like, okay, this is a tough week, a really hard week?
No. If I was on Uranium now, I'd be boosted by the fact I'm playing him right now, because it's, like I said in the last segment, they're really struggling to find that first man to replace Inza. They don't seem to be scoring goals, they're leaking goals, and although they're 24 and 16, they have to look over the shoulder, and Uranium are the ones that risen this week due to that forfeit win, so going 5-3 might not show that they're in form. However, if they can pull off something here and get a result against Bayou, this is the week that could propel them into the top 4.
So a massive week in the Glaciers side of things. But if we turn the page and have a look at the Ignis side of things, Monk, on the Ignis side, it's these top teams that are really fighting for that top spot. As I think, Toxin versus Arena Tribe, Toxin versus Weird Booze, some big games there. What stands out for you, Monk?
I think it's a big week for Weeaboos. They're going up against two of these top 4 sides, as you say, Toxin and also Ember tomorrow. If they're going to have any chance of shortening this 7-game gap to 4th place, the last playoff spot, they're going to need some big results against these two teams.
Definitely important indeed to Weeaboos need to bring the big guns to take down the Flames of Ember and the deadliness of Toxin. But Archaon, what about yourself? Away from Toxin, because I know you're gassed, you're excited for your franchise team. What excites you about the Ignis games ahead?
It seems like the top 4 are meeting each other again this week. I remember the first 2 weeks being really close in Ignis last time. And we've got Party Rings versus Concerto. As Monk said, Weeaboos versus Ember. Toxin versus Weeaboos. I think Concerto will be looking to get a result against Erebos and Party Rings to try and get that top spot back. But I want to concentrate a little bit on the lower end. Like I said, Arena Tribe got that first win yesterday, and they could be boosted by that. If they can get a result against Toxin, and then they look at Yoruba's recent results, Arena could really, really be looking to take a solid week into week 6 and 7 in the future weeks.
So, yeah, I mean, big games for sure. And as you were saying, Concerto really looking forward to get those W's and take it to these top sides to move forward. But so many close games on the horizon on both sides. So many important games. I think the minor, right now is the closest and probably has the most impactful games on the standings, in this week. And so, guys, if there are any games to tune into on stream, is these minor games because it can really affect the standings so far. But as we have the schedule, that brings us to the end of the minor weekly review, and will take us on a nice vessel floating down towards the major weekly review. And with that, our first stop is going to be the results. And it's lovely to see no FFs on the board here. This makes me very, very happy indeed. Monk, talk me. What are you seeing here? Open my eyes to these results.
Well, I was looking at these and I saw Blackout when they got 2 wins, and Dark Energy they also got 2 wins. And I was looking at it, and Dark Energy are now on a 6-win streak, and Blackout are on a 7-win streak. So, it's going to be a question of can anyone stop these two teams? Because at the moment, they're just not being stopped by anyone, and maybe when they meet together in the Glacier side, that'll be what stops them eventually. But yeah, Dark Energy going 8-0, I think, after, I think there was like 7-1 last week. It's just unstoppable at the moment.
I was proved massively wrong with Dark Energy this week. I had Evoke and I think Asterix saying that they'd beat Megumin 4-0, and I was like, no chance you're beating Megumin 4-0. Not in a million years. And like, Megumin have been boosted by the fact that Sky was on that roster. I mean, we saw how well they played on stream the other day, and then they signed Alanis as well, which to me only boosts that squad. And then they went and lost 4-0. Strafe admittedly said that he had a bad game and bad series, but Dark Energy going 8-0, and sweeping Megumin makes a massive statement. And to go ahead of Blackout as well on goal difference, because head to head was 2-2. They're going to be absolutely chuffed this week.
I mean, that's huge, because I swear we had Dark Energy was sat towards the bottom past couple of weeks ago. Am I wrong there?
They had an iffy start. One of the roster disbanded after losing like the first 1 or 2 series, and now they find themselves top. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a fantastic result from the side of Dark Energy. That's really, really good to see from them. And I think I'd like to also bring up another team which I was surprised of, but on a different side, and that is Abbey St James. I swear they've been really dominant, but they went 5-3, was it? I mean,
3
that's
and
not the
5.
best. 3-5 even. Not the best results from them. Am I incorrect in believing that?
Well, they got swept by Venom, so not great. And they even let Zulu get a win against him. I think that might have been with a sub as well on the Zulu side, so they couldn't even close it out against a team with having roster issues. So yeah, after those I think it was first 4 weeks, they were very strong. Or maybe first 3. In week 4, we saw them have difficulties, and they've continued that, getting swept by Arch's major side there.
Definitely tough stuff indeed. But those are your results from this week. And with those results, let's see how they've affected the Glacies standings to start off with, and see if any tier can actually get close to how close the minor standings in Glacies are. But we see Dark Energy propel themselves to the top, tied with Blackout, both with 29 wins each. They are 10 wins ahead of first place Abbey St James. 19 wins for them after quite a rough couple of past 2 weeks. Fjord is sat in fourth with 18 wins, followed by Phyllis Delta with 17. 16 wins goes to Overtake, who moved up into 6th place. 7th is Ragnarok, and 8th is Saturnia with 15 and 13 wins respectively. But it is this is still exceptionally close between 3rd and 8th right now. But Dark Energy and Blackout, they're just untouchable, Archaon.
Yeah, you can see as well, goals scored. They're the only 2 teams that have scored over 100 goals. They've both got plus 40 goal difference. Everyone else in the tier has a negative goal difference.
Wow.
They are just smashing teams right now. And yeah, I cannot wait for Dark Energy versus Blackout.
I mean, that's going to be... I mean, do you any idea when that game's happening? Because I want to know.
Not off the top of my head, but I'll be definitely looking at it when I do schedules and polls tonight.
100%. Try and get the game on Wednesday. You know why? All right, let's try and schedule this on Wednesday. Anyway,
week 7.
Week 7.
Oh no! Oh well, make it happen on a Wednesday, and I'll do my best. Anyway, this is incredible how Dark Energy and Blackout are moving away, moving out ahead, but. What's also incredible is how close the rest of the games are, and teams are. As Mike said, you want standings to be nice and close. You don't want 2 separations between every single team. Mark, right now, surely, I mean, am I wrong in saying Saturnia still has a strong chance in making playoffs, or is that me going mad?
Of course they do. 5 wins, very doable. They have had a negative week, presumably considering they've dropped 2 spots, but. I'm looking at this Fearless Delta side and this Overtake side. They've gone up to 5th and 6th. Overtake have swapped around their roster, as you were pointing out earlier. You've got Bolt and Laser reunited on the Overtake side, and they'll probably be delighted by the fact Abbey St James have had a rough week, and Fjord have had roster issues. They've just cut 2 players in Wolfie and Rattles, so very much for the taking these. Yeah, he's been cut.
What?
Yeah,
Wolfie's left as well. But
what's happened?
The thing is, like, from 3rd to 8th, all of them have had inconsistent results. None of them have been picking up results consistently. And I think that's the problem. As soon as you start winning and then losing a few games, You're always going to have disgruntled players, especially at a tier such as Major and Elite. And what I'd be thinking, if I was any of these teams, how lucky they've been to be in this position, because I mean, Fearless Delta, in my opinion, is one of the best sides in Major. Like, individually, you've got Swaces, Crossy, and Barissa, and they're just so inconsistent right now, but they're still only 2 wins away from being at the top of the cross-conference playing in 3rd place. So how they're getting these inconsistent results and still in with a chance of playoffs is beyond me. I haven't seen this table like this for a while.
And it is absolutely incredible. And I saw Bolt's message in chat saying Rattles may come to me and Laser. I don't know if that's a rumor or if that is true, but I mean, Archaon, to me, Laser, Bolt, and Rattles sounds like an incredibly scary roster.
Definitely. Obviously, Bolt and Laser have a lot to prove in Major because they were minor last season. However, Bolt was doing really well on Megumin. He's just took a little bit of time out for himself. And Laser as well. He took a few weeks out for personal reasons as well. Only just come back. So I think they'll just be wanting to vibe together. To be honest, Bolt and Laser. Well, obviously, I managed them last season, and their comms are hilarious. Like, it's not even about the game, it's just having fun. And as long as them two are doing that and they're happy, then, I mean, as the person running the league, I just love to see people having fun.
I do agree. You know, massively so. And something which struck me about these two, and we will move on quickly, but you know, and actually something, not only these two, but they're a great example of what happens across the league. When teams are having fun, they're usually teams who are performing the best. Do you agree, Archaon? I know Bolt and Laser, when they were having fun, they were definitely super strong. I know that when Overtake had a great, you know, enjoyed playing this week, they were absolutely unbelievable as well.
I was just going to say,
when players having fun, they're playing their best.
Overtake, when you had Anchelo, Mash, and Con, when they were all having fun, they went 4 series unbeaten in Major, and then as soon as they have a dip in form or dip in mental state, and they lose 1 series, the roster disbanded. Like, that's how competitive people's mindset is at these higher ranks.
100%. But you know, it is, you know, there's a lot to say for teams staying together. Some of the best teams across any esport who've stuck together through thick and thin. It's all about enjoying yourself, and as Arkin said, RSC, have fun, enjoy these games, guys. Because when you enjoy yourself and have a good time, regardless of regardless of your gameplay, you are more than likely going to get more W's. You know, positive energy brings up positive outcomes. But anyway, yeah, we've talked a lot right now. Let's have a look at the Ignis standings right now. Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you before I keep on rattling on. What you know, talk me through these standings.
We've seen it once before in minor. We're seeing it again. 4 teams tied on the same number of wins. Blaze, Jammy, Dodgers, Megaman, Colt, Thanatos. Everyone has the chance to get second. Everyone has the chance to get 5th or lower if Rhapsody can get their act together. But yeah, so close in this top half.
I mean, it's so close indeed. And once again, we have a whole bunch of teams tied. I mean, Archaon, I don't want to jump the gun here, but do you think this is the closest RSC standings, you know, we've had looking across all of the conferences and all of the tiers? Do you think this is the closest the RSC has ever been?
I still maintain that last season was the most competitive in league play until playoffs. A few people got better rosters just before playoffs. However, there always seems to be a standout team in each tier so far that we notice. But then once we come down from like 2nd to 5th or like 4th to 8th, that's where it's closest. And I think these standings still have a lot to live up to from last season's results, but it's definitely as close.
Definitely. So, a lot to play for. We know that these top teams are kind of pulling away, but still, anything can happen. Playoffs is still a bit away, and when it hits playoffs, teams can really show up. We've seen surprises happen in the past. Wouldn't be surprised if they happen again. But those are your Ignis standings, guys. And so we are going to move. Oh, go
I
ahead.
think Megumin just swept Thanatos as well. So
Oh,
what a
that's
recovery
huge.
from the sweep that they suffered at the hands of Dark Energy. So that puts Megumin on 27 and 17 now. And that makes Jammy Dodgers and Blaze, the pressure goes on to them now because Thanatos have lost. And they'll be looking to get a few wins ahead.
Definitely. But yeah, those are your Ignis standings. And so with that, let's have a look at the fixtures for the week ahead in the major tier. And once again, guys, this is not cross-conference. This is back to normality, shall we say. These teams will be playing within the conference against each other. Today, the games happening are Thanatos versus Megumin Cult, and as we just heard, Megumin Cult have swept Thanatos, so sending them up with how close the standings are. But big games ahead. I'm actually kind of looking at Abbey St James to kind of maybe find their form a little bit, but alongside their Dark Energy, definitely team to push forward, and that Dark Energy overtake game I think is going to be absolutely cracking. Don't you agree, Archaon?
Yeah, definitely. I think Fearless Delta really need to be looking at. Sorry, did you say Fearless Delta or Overtake?
I said overtake versus Dark Energy.
Okay, Overtake. I was looking at both of Dark Energy's fixtures because obviously, if Overtake is Bolt, Laser, and Rattles, like there's hints in the chat, that's going to be an amazing game. But also, I want to look to Fearless Delta versus Dark Energy as well. Like I always keep saying, I really rate this Fearless side, but they really need to pick up a result against Dark Energy, who are now top.
Definitely. Someone needs to knock some energy off this dark side, honestly, because otherwise they're just going to start running away. But Ignis, Monk, tell me about Ignis.
Well, with these 4 tied teams, not so tight anymore, as Megaman Cult did get that sweep, you're looking at anyone to try and re-tie with Megaman Cult. Maybe Blaze looking for a result against Arc's team Venom. If they manage to get a result there, Megaman Cult will certainly be looking back over their shoulders once more, especially as they do play each other on that same day. So it's a big day for Blaze then on the 8th. Also, Jammy Dodgers, they'll play 2 very close teams. They play Thanatos, who just got swept. It's a big one, and they also play Rhapsody, who are sitting on 19. So Rhapsody will really need some results to try and catch up to that main block of 4 that were tied.
100%. So, in my eyes, right now, the big games lie on Blaze's shoulders on the 8th. If they can take down both Venom and Megumin Cult, that's going to be an absolute game changer for the standings. But those are your fixtures ahead for the major week 6. And with that, let's move on to the Elite Weekly Review and have a look at the results after this cross-conference week that we've just experienced. Elite always being really, really fantastic with some top-quality games. We see 2 FFs, one from Jaffa, both from High Voltage. I don't know what was going on there. Any hints, Archaon? Any idea why these FFs happening from this side?
They just didn't have a roster, and the GM hasn't been around, so they forfeited both games. That's all I can really say.
That's really rather unfortunate, but it is what it is. Nocturne, though, Fierce Alpha was able to take a game off Nocturne, but Nocturne and Overwatch tied 2-2. I mean, that is impressive. Nocturne seemed to be this unstoppable force, but Overwatch has just said, absolutely not. We can match you. So, what a game that must have been, Monk.
It was the first versus first, the very tip of the top in the RSC, and both teams put up a show. It was on stream. They got that too, as you said. Nocturne looked very good in their own half, but the Glacy side came to play. They came to show they could get results against the Ignis side, and yeah, what a game that was.
It was literally Haven versus Nuxie. They've been the 2 standout players in Elite this season.
I mean, I'm gonna go back and re-watch this actually after this stream. I'm gonna watch the Overwatch versus Nocturne series because of how quality it was. I mean, these two sides. I mean, Archaon, we kind of spoke. We kind of thought that Nocturne was this untouchable force. We knew Overwatch were good. We weren't dismissing them, but we did think that Nocturne was this kind of, untouchable team. You know what I mean? They were so dominant in their own conference. We knew Overwatch were running away as well, but Nocturne just seemed too good. But Overwatch must be proud of their performance.
Well, we didn't really think these teams were going to be the Untouchables
Yeah,
until
true.
around week 4 or 5. Like, they've really come out and shown that. I mean, the predictions for Rias Legion, Carnage, and Inferno being the top 3 in Ignis. I mean, Nocturne, I think, were predicted 4th, and they've just took them down with ease. And I think until this week, Nocturne and Overwatch had the best records in RSC, along with Exelon in Prospect. They'd only lost 7 games up until this week. So, yeah, I think a 2-2 was a fair result. And like I said, Haven versus Nuxie, they've been the 2 standout players. That they could possibly be in it for the player of the season as well. I just want to touch on Dogon, though. Got a solid 2-2 draw against Olympus, I think, with the sub playing as well. And they also swept Willoughby Vogue to cause that roster to cause someone to leave as well. So Dogon are really impressing in the Ignis conference as well, despite being ranked 8th in power rankings at the start of the season because they only had 3 players.
Definitely, and before we move on to the standings, I kind of want to talk about Inferno. It's a bit of a high fall from grace from them. They were this unbelievable, formidable force last season, the season prior. Being that untouchable team, but now they just can't seem to get off the ground. Now it's what's happening with this Inferno side.
Eminence, they've gone 8-0, including that sweep over Inferno, and yeah, Inferno really struggling, only getting those wins from the forfeit from High Voltage. I don't know, Hailey has said multiple times that he just doesn't perform in RSC, but he's got to get his act together if they can't keep losing in sweeps like this.
Zerko's also quit Rocket League as well, so one of the main roster players who Hailey are actually got involved in a triangle of trades with myself, Shires, and Yannick to get Zerko onto that team. He's quit, and they had to use DRK Temp FA for both games yesterday. Obviously, like Monk said, they got a forfeit from the second one, fortunately, after getting swept. So Inferno really need to sort these roster issues out because they currently find themselves 4th, I think, just on the cusp of the conference playing. And with Carnage making roster changes this week to hopefully try and push up, it looks like Rias and Inferno will be looking over the shoulders.
Definitely, and it's tough. I mean, do you think it was Destiny really that much of an impact on in the Inferno side? I mean, I know that's a wild question, Archaon, but did he make that much of an impact?
Obviously. I mean, Destiny Ultras in Detroit, I mean, it was the second best roster last season. They lost the final. Destiny and Ultras lost the final in season 5 as well. So, I mean, when you've got a consistent roster that's played together for 2 seasons, and you've only just got this team together of Hylia and Zerko within the last 2 weeks, and one of them's already quitting, there's always going to be issues.
It is tough indeed. But the GOAT himself, Destiny, will be missed. We'll wonder if he ever does come back to the RSC. But he is, sure, heading on to bigger and better things. But it is what it is. But, we talked about these results, so let's have a look at the standings in the Glacies conference in the elite tier. After the week 5 cross-conference games, Overwatch sat at the top with 28 and 12. 2 wins behind is Olympus in second place, followed by third Eminence. Oyovi go down to 4th with 22 wins. Paradox in 5th with 19. Willoughby Vogue in 6th with 16 wins, and High Voltage and Fearless Alpha with 13 and 11 wins apiece. And so, still quite close. I mean, it's not as close as we've seen in the previous couple of tiers, but still a lot to play for all the same. And Munkmunk, just give me a quick brief overview of these Glacy standings.
Well, you can say the only movement is Eminence going up 3 spots in the standings after going 8-0 against Inferno and their other match, can't remember what it was, but so they're really challenging for those top 2 spots, now only 3 behind Olympus. You also see High Voltage join as 7th after their 2 forfeits. They haven't dropped any, but they're now a full 9 behind Iovia in 4th. So, get the roster in, get them playing, because if you wait any longer, you're not going to have a chance.
Eminence have done fantastic, though, in my opinion. They're one of those teams that have been... I mean, look at their MMRs. I think they're all around 1750. I think they've only got 11820 or something. They've done fantastically well to put up this sort of a fight. And me personally, I'm looking at this top 4 and thinking this is the top 4 for the rest of the season.
Really? I mean, is Paradox not going to challenge him, or will it be Vogue, or even you said your fateful fearless alpha side?
Well, Paradox didn't turn up for the match against my elite teams. They subbed up a minor and a challenger, I think, and somehow managed to take 1 game, but forfeited the first 2. They lost 3-1. If their main roster isn't turning up, then that's a problem. And Willoughby Vogue lost Ultras, who just quit after the last game and then came to me. So, yeah, Paradox, Willoughby Vogue, roster issues, High Voltage forfeited the last 2 games, and Fearless Alpha have a low MMR team. I just think this conference is set.
Interesting stuff indeed. And let's see how set in stone the Ignis conference is as we glance over at their standings. And Overwatch overturned the 2 teams at the top. Let's see how close it is for the Nocturne side, as they actually go down into 2nd as Dogon overtake them. We spoke at how good Dogon was in their run as they claim that first place with 31 wins. And so maybe it isn't just Nocturne and Overwatch right now. It's Nocturne, Overwatch, and Dogon, these untouchables right now. RS Legion sat in 3rd place with 24 wins. Inferno in 22nd. Carnage in 5th with 17. Jaffa Cakes with 17, as well as 5th and 6th respectively. The 7th and 8th goes to Hades and Senpais. Hades with 13 wins and Senpais with a mere unfortunate 8 wins. And I mean, Archaon, you spoke a lot about Dogon and a lot about how good they are, and look at them now claiming that first spot.
Yeah, it's one of the only teams that Shaman are actually doing well in at the moment. They're absolutely dominating this conference. Nocturne obviously fell from 1st to 2nd, but these 2 teams are absolutely just at the top of the form right now. I can't remember. I don't even think they've lost a series. I'm just thinking back to whether they have. I can only remember them drawing, and Nocturne drew in cross-conference, so... Yeah, I think Rias and Inferno will be the most disappointed in this tier, and Carnage as well, because they were the 3 who were predicted to be the powerhouses at this conference.
Definitely. And I'll definitely be looking for Rias Legion and Inferno to kind of push back against Nocturne and Dogon. They have the potential. Well, RS Legion definitely has the potential. Inferno, if they can get a good roster settle, they will also have the potential as well to kind of push against Nocturne and Dogon. But those are your elite standings for Ignis and Glacies. And with that, let's have a look at the upcoming fixtures for this week ahead after the cross-conference week has just gone. As we see here, Glacies and Ignis. Paradox versus Overwatch happened today, and Willoughby Vogue versus Overwatch as well. So Overwatch getting 2 games in at the beginning of this week. Any results coming out from there? If anyone can let me know in the chat, let's have give me a shout.
They beat Paradox 3-1.
They beat Paradox 3-1, so Overwatch still at the top there for this side. Overwatch dominating, as we know, and expect them to do so. Archaon, right now, the games that stand out to you?
The games that stand out to me, I mean, Iovia versus Eminence straight away. You've got 3rd versus 4th in the Glacis. And then over the other side...
Dogon.
Yeah, over the other side, Nocturne versus Dogon, 1st versus 2nd as well. You've got Carnage rebuilding the roster, playing against Rias Legion. All these games only start in 3 days' time as well, so it's a big 3 days for Elite in Ignis. But I think Jaffa Cakes will need to put on an important week this week as well. They've clawed themselves back to 17 and 23 along with Carnage. Had a really bad start to the season. But they've got Nocturne and Senpais, and we've already seen Senpais with only 8 wins. Yeah, Jaffa Cake's needing a big week this week to stay in contention.
100%. And Monk, any other teams that need to have a big week?
Well, Ark was saying earlier that the Glaciers top 4 is decided. So after that loss to Overwatch for Paradox, the match against High Voltage tomorrow is going to be absolutely massive because they both had roster issues and people not turning up. So whoever turns up for that one tomorrow, it could be big if anyone's going to have a go at Iovi and Eminence in 3rd and 4th.
100%, 100%. So big games for the both conferences, but a big week for the Ignis conference. Indeed, can these teams get their rosters settled in order to push forward? Indeed. Oh, and that has been your weekly reviews in Elite, and weekly reviews for every single tier. And next we go on to drumroll franchise standings to see how each franchise has faced after their respective teams wins. And Symbiote sat at the top with 132 wins. Overture in second with 119. Confectionery move up to third, overtaking Ignite Esports. The Veil is in fifth, overtaking Heaven's Call. Static Caravan by Esports in 7th. Just following them is Override, who have overtaken the disconnected Esports team in 9th. Quantum in 10th, System Solaris in 11th, Waifu Fan Club in 12th with 88 wins, Fearless Esports in 13th, who have overtaken the might of Hades, not so mighty now, unfortunately, who are in 14th, Kazuku in 15th, and sat at the bottom in 16th are the Shaman Esports with 69 wins, Pepega lol. And those are your franchise standings right now. You see, we got there eventually, franchise. But now we can move on to our guest of the week.
Before we do move on to the guest, I just want to point out to that sheet that Monk made. We only really scanned Prospect and Challenger about the cross conference, and obviously the good thing about cross conference is seeing these people play each other. So we had Prospect, Ignis 21, Glacis 43, Challenger 25, Glacis 39. So Glacis won both tiers in that respect. And then as we head into minor, it was 34-30 in Ignis's favour, 36-28 in in Ignis's favour again. And then in Elite, it was 34-30 in Ignis's favour. However, due to the Prospect and Challenger results, Glacis actually won 170 games and Ignis won 150. So at the moment, it shows that maybe Ignis isn't the stacked conference it was made out to be.
You see, people were moaning and complaining as when the draw happened for each conference, but actually, it is Glaciers who are coming out on top. All these new franchises, getting more wins overall than the old predisposed franchises, and it's kind of almost being shown with the franchise standings. All of these teams are kind of like, it's all mismatched. There's no, not one side of the standings is, one conference. So it's good to see indeed. But now can, Archaon, can we move on to our special guest this evening?
You can, and you can tease this one without the thing in the top left as well. You can tease
we can tease it. Can we tease it? That's the question.
You can tease it while I drag him in.
Dude, get on and drag him in. So today we have a really fantastic guest. He's been a fantastic member of the RSC over the past, couple of seasons. Brilliant mechanics, and the guy who I trash talk whilst casting unbelievable amounts. And today we have Louis. Louis, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, mate. How are you doing?
I am fantastic as always. It's great to have you on the RS caster and to have a bit of insight into a player's performance and a bit of a man yourself on the field. Louis plays for the Atlas Everglade in the minor league for Static Caravan Buyers esports team. And so, really exciting stuff indeed. Archaon, I'm going to hand over to you firstly to ask Louis some questions.
Hi, Louis.
Hello, Archaon.
Okay,
Hit me.
so yeah, I advocated with Chonka to give you the second in command spot to try and train you up. How did you find that over the season that he did train you up, and how are you finding it this season?
Well, in all honesty, I got left to my own devices in a lot of respects because we kind of used Prospect with it being a new division. We used it as a little pet project for me to try and see how well I can manage a team. And I think Galaxy Polaris, well, at the time they were for Mondeo, did quite well back then. So I think I shifted into it quite well with that. I went into the position with quite a bit of confidence in my ability. And I think, at least in the lower tiers, that's translated quite well.
Yeah, definitely. How are you finding it then this season? Like, what are your aims for the last 3 weeks now?
Well, my aim, it just coincides with my aim from the beginning of the season, which was to get all 5 teams into playoffs. That was what I wanted to do. And I think for the most part, we're doing quite well. But it's just like we've had quite a shaky start, I think. Like with Revenge not showing up for games in Elite, and then we had roster issues in Major. We had roster issues in Minor with myself. We was 5 over the cap in Minor without me realizing until the last day.
Yep.
On roster lock day, I realized we were 5 over. So I kind of panicked and had to inactive reserve myself and sign Charlie, which worked in our favor in the end anyway because my computer broke literally days after this.
Yeah, that was my next question as well. Like, how have you found being back on this roster?
The first week was great. Oh, I was so happy to be back. Like, I felt like I was playing really well. It's the best I've played in weeks. We, from what I remember, I think we went 6-2 that week. We took a 4-0 victory and then a 2-2. And I think I got 13 goals. So I was really, really confident after that. And it was just in general, it felt really good to be back. Like, you don't realize how much you miss playing until you come back and you get that rush again. But I was really, really, really happy to be back.
That's good to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a fantastic player. You are, and I butted in a little bit too quickly. But I just want to kind of reiterate and follow on from that point. You played a hell of a lot last season, but having the newfound pressure, do you think that's affected your play at all?
Well, to be fair, I'm quite a pressure. I can be quite. I'm looking for the word. Weak to pressure sometimes when it comes to the big fixtures, but I think in general I've coped with it a lot better than I expected to have done. Especially being quite a low MMR player on the roster with Fleege and Beatos. Well, Fleege is heavily underrated. Fleege is an absolute god, and Beatos again, he's like top of the division in MMR. So I felt a little bit out of my depth in the roster, but they've helped me significantly with my own confidence, and they've helped me adapt to their playstyle so that we can become a 3-man roster, and it's just been working really well.
So
Back over to you, Archaon.
yeah, my next question was, obviously we've seen you a lot in season 5 and 6. I think you've been all-star, and you were player of the season in season 5, and I think you were all-star last season.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you didn't play because of work.
During last season.
Yeah. Did you play in the all-star game?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't play in the All-Star game due to work. Yeah,
my knowledge is correct, Louis. Don't worry.
Yeah, I thought you meant throughout the season, so I was like, no.
But yeah, like you've been this star player for 2 seasons, and you now find yourself in the highest tier that you've been in before. I know you were dreading it at first. How do you come back from your last result? I believe you got swept. So you find yourself in 4th now in minor after rejoining the roster. How do you reset your mentality after that loss?
I don't actually think as a team we have a damaged mentality because when I joined, we were in 7th. So to then be in 4th 2 weeks later is an achievement in itself. But the game against Party Rings, they were amazing. They were such a good team. I cannot fault them for anything. Like, out of all of the teams we've played so far, no offense to the other teams, but they were far and away the best team we've played so far. Like, they absolutely dominated. It was game 1 and 2. I think it was 4-0 and 7-0 to them. We took an absolute shafting in the first 2 games.
Yeah,
but
they are the predicted winners as well.
Instead of just laying down and, taking the battering that we were getting, we worked together as a team and gelled. And the third game was 4-2 to them, and the last game was 1-0. And frankly, I think we deserved to win that last game. We were on top for the entire game. So I don't think our mentality is damaged because despite us taking a 4-0 loss, we learned a lot from that game. And it's helped us in general as a team. And I think we'll come back a lot stronger this week after that because to us, it's a negative result, but a positive attitude.
Yeah, I could tell it's positive mentality. Monk, I'm going to pass him over to you now.
Well, you've been asked so much already. I'm gonna go back to the start and ask how you found out about RSC, how you got into this, how you got Chunker as your GM, and eventually led to this position where you are now.
That is the perfect question, because actually I got here through Archaon, because there's a Facebook group called Rocket League UK, and every so often I just scroll through there to see who's on. Sometimes I like to argue with people, you know what I'm like. And I saw a post about the RSC EU from Archaon, and I decided, yeah, screw it, I'll sign up and see what happens. So I signed up and proceeded to completely forget about it. And then about a month and a half later, I got a message from Chonka saying, "Oh yeah, you're my first pick in Challenger," and I was like, "Oh, great, let's go!" Like I was excited to play, which meant, having not played ranked for a while before this, I then started playing ranked again and like actually grinding. And I went up after roster lock. I think just after the tier list locked, I went up 100 MMR in like a week, because I just started grinding like crazy. And I ended up, I think I was top of the tier already, and then went up another 100 MMR after that. So I kind of felt like I was playing really, really well. But yeah, that's where I came from. It was actually Archaon's doing the reason I'm here.
Yeah, me too. I think he's done a lot of work for this league with all of his advertisements across Facebook, across all the Discord servers. Yeah, a lot of us have him to thank for being here, but yeah, thank you for that answer.
I mean, brilliant stuff indeed. And Louis, you have always been a go. I've been enjoying casting you every single time I see you. It makes me happy. Some brilliant gameplay indeed. And thank you, Bean, for such a positive energy in the RSC community. I know you're loved by many, many people. And so keep on doing what you're doing. And I'm sure maybe down the line we'll see you as your own GM, yourself running your own franchise. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for coming on the RS Cast indeed.
I am a GM.
I know, but I mean, you know where I was going with this whole thing. This doesn't matter. My mind is wandering. I'm just kind of thinking about your gameplay more than anything else. But Louis, thank you so much for coming on the RS Cast.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thank you for having me.
We now move nicely on to our guest this week.
No, you've done it. You've done
No,
it.
I've done it again. Oh,
Every
franchise
time.
standings
Every time.
single time.
I told him
I've missed them.
specifically tonight, don't forget franchise standings up. I
I
won't.
do
I
it
won't.
every
Don't worry.
single week. I do it every single week. Man, I'm tilted. Listen, Archaon, take us back. Take us back to the fixtures, just real quick. Take us back to the fixtures. I'm gonna do that all again because it's tilting me, and I am mad about it now. I'm gonna have to do
Right,
it
Hop.
again.
Where are we going to now?
Okay.